Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Maqbool with you at Pitafi World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at two important stories. The first is with reference to the law and order situation in the country and Pakistan's continuing fight against terrorism. This is, of course, something that Pakistan has been dealing with for quite some time now, and we have seen a spike in terrorist activities, particularly after the US troop withdrawal in Afghanistan, and also, of course, in terms of what has happened in KPK, Balochistan, and other parts of Pakistan, where many spoiler elements are, of course, also operating, making use of the kind of vacuum that has been created and poor political decisions taken by the decision makers of the past. And so we're going to be taking a look at what that means, especially in terms of on-ground situation, what Pakistan needs to do in this fight against terrorism. We have also seen that recently there has been an attack in Karachi near the airport in which two Chinese nationals have lost their lives and one more have been injured, including many others that have been injured as well. And this is something that leaves a huge impact on the integrity of the country as well, and of course in terms of the protection of the citizens of any other foreign and nationality. And this is important, particularly in terms of the upcoming SCO summit that Pakistan is hosting, and the fact that Pakistan, of course, enjoys a very important and strong relationship with China. This has been, of course, ensured by the Prime Minister of Pakistan to the Chinese counterparts. This is something that that Pakistan, of course, takes very, very seriously, and that he will be, of course, looking into this personally in terms of the investigation and making sure that those responsible are brought to task. However, we, of course, also need to see in terms of what measures need to be taken at large to prevent such incidents from happening, and to making sure that the kind of terrorist activities and groups that are operating in the country, and of course those also that are emerging from outside of the borders, are curtailed, and that we can ensure safety and security of all Pakistani citizens and of course other foreign nationals as well. So that's going to be our focus in the first segment, try and understand what exactly is it that Pakistan needs to take a look at in terms of its fight against terrorism in light of the recent activities and operations that have taken place, and of course in the larger context of how this is something that not only Pakistan faces, but is something that other countries are also acknowledging, particularly those groups that are having safe havens in Afghanistan that have a regional and international impact. Our second topic is going to be taking a look at the ongoing genocide in Gaza, and of course this is something that has been going on for about a year now, and this is of course the anniversary, a very, very horrid, tragic and condemnable anniversary that is being observed today. And this is important, particularly in terms of how the suffering of the people of Palestine in Gaza continues, but not that this is something that started back on the 7th of October 2023. It is in fact something that has started many, many decades ago, and of course is something that presents to the entire world the situation that needs our attention, and that we can no longer remain silent on. And taking this matter from the front, we have seen that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has called an all-parties conference that took a look at what exactly is it that Pakistan can do at this front, and also in terms of the way that Islamic countries need to unite and have a unified stance against Israel, and of course the actions that need to be taken with regards to that. We, of course, have also seen in the discussions that took place with the statements made by the Prime Minister, the President, and others, including the former Prime Minister, Nawaz Sharif, as well, that this is extremely important, particularly in terms of how Muslim countries can unify on this front, and what actions need to be taken in light of the redundancy or inaction taken by the United Nations Security Council and the resolutions, which, of course, provide this option on paper. However, there is no consequence that we've seen, despite the fact that the world has seen the actions of Israel and Netanyahu since the past year, if not before. So we're going to be taking a look at what that means for Pakistan, and then of course for the evolving situation in Gaza and Palestine, and of course the possibilities of escalation in the Middle East. That is going to be our focus in the second segment of the show today. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi and Raja Faisal, and we've also been joined online by Major General retired Mr. Zahid, Mahmood, who's joined us in the first segment. Thank you very much, General Sahib, for joining us and being a part of the discussion. And I'll start with you in terms of our fight against terrorism, because that is extremely important. It is not the first time, it is not new to us that this is something that Pakistan has to deal with. We have done so previously, we have won it previously as well, and we understand the dynamics. But I want your take in terms of what is going on at the moment, and the way that Pakistan will need to take a look at its own strategy, the measures that it needs to take on place, and the way that it needs to put on a more comprehensive way forward in dealing with the acts of terrorism, in light of course what has happened in Karachi and the fact that Chinese nationals have been targeted and lost their lives. It's extremely important for Pakistan as part of its geopolitical situation, as part of a very important player in the the international arena in making sure that it presents itself as a safe and peaceful country, not only for Pakistani citizens, but also for other nationals. But how do we do that in light of what has been happening recently and in the way that these terrorist activities continue to rise?
Well, thank you very much, Sana, for having me on your show, and my regards to the elite panelists sitting in the studio. Well, Pakistan is a victim of terrorism for a very long time now. And, and to start with, the bottom line is to tackle with this menace is the whole of a nation approach, to be very honest. So as we have been speaking a lot about it, uh, Pakistan military and the Pakistani security forces, they're in a position to fight the terrorists. But the terrorism has to be fought by the nation. So it has to be a whole of a nation approach. So in the recent past, there has been increase and there is a surge in the terrorist activities, especially in Balochistan and in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And in last few days, especially the event which has happened in Karachi, it's really very alarming, So primarily, as of today, Pakistan is facing two kinds of threat. One is from the Fitna al-Khawarij, those Kharajites, those who are trying to change the way of life of the people of Pakistan. So they are attacking our way of life. So this is one threat. The other one is by the insurgents and the terrorists who are using the guns against the Pakistani nation, who want to change the geography of the Pakistan, especially the BLAs and the elements, BLF, and the elements who are fighting in Balochistan. So to deal with these two threats, as I said, the bottom line will remain that it is the whole of a nation approach. But we have to have a very precise and a precision kinetics to deal with these terrorists, to take them out, So with the gun, we have to be very, very strong, and we should convey we should convey our will. It should be visible that this nation has a will to take you out wherever you are. We will pursue you, even if you are in Pakistan or you're outside Pakistan, like they have the safe havens in Afghanistan, where unfortunately the Taliban government, who we were expecting that they'll come out with little better governance and there'll be a force of order, but unfortunately they have not learned from the past. They are not only hosting them, they are supporting them. And probably this is the high time has come for Pakistan to take all measures against the government in Afghanistan in all fields, diplomatic, political, and of course, taking out the targets in Afghanistan. So they're supporting them, they're harboring them. So they're coming to Pakistan and then, they do their activities and go back. So on the military prong, the kinetic has to be precise, with a lot of precision and very effective. They're also targeting our economic activity in Balochistan in terms of the CPEC. And yesterday, the attack in Karachi was primarily against the Chinese national, was primarily against the economic activity which is taking place in Balochistan and the way Chinese are investing in Pakistan. The timings of this event, which has happened in Karachi, unfortunately, before the SCO conference, is again alarming. And it's alarming in a way that a lot of foreigners, a lot of dignitaries, they're supposed to be traveling to Pakistan, and Indian foreign minister, foreign secretary is also coming to Pakistan. So these events before the SCO and kind of, creating an environment that Pakistan is not a safe country. So this might have some links somewhere, but it's just an apprehension of mine, maybe. All right. But again, this hint towards the situation which is there in Pakistan. So we have to be very, very careful. Coming over to the whole of a nation, once I speak about that, that's the government is primarily, they should be taking care of the political and the social prongs in this respect. Again, the major event which has happened yesterday was we have proscribed the Pakhtun movement. Okay, so this was kind of a soft face, you can say, a political face, which was now collaborating with the Fitna al-Khawarij, the Kharajites. So the collaboration of the militant wings and the political wings and pursuing the kind of the same objectives. So a lot of stuff coming in KPK, a lot of stuff coming in Balochistan. Our provincial governments they will have to play a very, very important and a critical role, mind you. So there's no time for Pakistan for these political, I mean, activities, which is we have to maybe pend it. I don't say that they should not struggle for their political objectives, but there is a timings are very important.
Right,
We
absolutely.
must.
And General Saab, I understand what you're referring to, but it's of course important given the realities of the world and the realities of the country. And I want your take on that particularly because this is of course something that provides the avenues for a lot of the elements and groups to actually use. And this is something that then again is being exploited in the interest of those who are damaging the country. And so I want your take in terms of when you say this is the government's job or this is the political decision making and this is what the military wing is going to be taking a look at, and these are the kind of operations that are going to take place. How is it that we can create that synergy that is needed? Because at the same time, while we talk about these kinetic measures, which are very, very important, the non-kinetic ones are extremely important as well and perhaps haven't been emphasized enough. And so we will be needing a lot of prerequisites to ensure a lot of what you're suggesting.
This is where we have to look into the political leadership of Pakistan. You know, there is a democracy in Pakistan, so there is a political leadership. Everybody will have to take back steps. So the democracy is a beautiful thing. You know, it can create space for everyone. So the political leadership will have to understand the sensitivity of this. All right. So the synergy has to come from the leadership of Pakistan. So there's a prime minister, there's a government. The opposition must understand their role. So it is the first prime responsibility of the government to create that environment. All right. We must put few things on a back burner at the moment. All right. You cannot handle everything all the time, everywhere. You can't be there. So you have to put few things on the back burner, and the most important thing, which is related to the economy of Pakistan, which is related to the security of Pakistan, and which is related to the sovereignty of Pakistan. Remember, they are already in the second segment, we'll be speaking about the situation in Middle East. And you know, the conflict is there in Iran. That has reached to our neighbors. That conflict is there. We have an internal situation. We have a country which is totally in disorder, that is in Afghanistan. We have a country on our eastern border, India. All right, their application on Pakistan and in the whole region, their policies to intimidate and have a subservient neighborhood is, you know, it is being challenged. So there's a lot of things going on. I'm sure you have other experts also. So there's this whole region is like in a pressure cooker, you know. So at this moment, we have to set priorities. We have to set priorities, but all we have to do. So it has to come from the political leadership. They will have to lead. The military leadership should focus on the kinetic operations and create an environment for a better table, for a better negotiations, for a better solutions. And the political government will have to follow the political and the social prong. All right. So it has to be a political leadership which has to take these necessary action. And then we all.
I understand. Faisal, I want your take on that because that's, of course, a very important aspect of the fight against terrorism. And we have seen that very recently also when we saw the Prime Minister announcing Azm Istiqam. This is something that we saw when expected, of course, that this has to create synergy or this has to be understood in the same manner by everybody. It wasn't the case. And so I want your perspective on exactly what will be these dynamics then that will ensure that, and while we talk about all of these measures that should be in place, they seem very abstract because in a lot of ways that we have seen in reality things are very, very different. And so how do we then ensure that our fight against terrorism is in fact synergized, is in fact agreed upon by different political parties, is in fact implemented in letter and spirit through the kind of agreements that we already have as part of the National Action Plan, and both from the federal and the provincial governments. This is of course something that we keep saying should happen, but how are we going to ensure it does?
Yeah, this is an excellent question, and when it comes to, of course, political fabric of Pakistan, we know that their political agendas are more dear to them rather than the security of the country itself. And I always highlight that there is a need of political consensus in Pakistan, and then economic consensus by all of the parties, be it PTI or the ruling parties. All of them, they need to sit together for both. But in addition to that, if they can't sit for political consensus or economic consensus, then at least security consensus should be there that the security matters should never be used for political mileage or for showing the gruntal sort of stance in front of the government. So when it comes to security, security is not just the government that is of course sort of responsible for that. Is the state itself responsibility. And when it comes to state, of course, even if it is the opposition party PTI, that is part of the state as well, I must say. So all of them, they need to sit together and of course define the lines where they can extend themselves in the political context.
But we did that in the past, Faisal.
We did that, and of course we know that we have national action plan, but on ground the situation is different. I mean, whatever is
and
going on.
What is it really that we need everybody's agreement on that we still don't have? What is so hard about our fight against terrorism?
No matter what, none of the political parties should be allowed to, of course, be an opposition when it comes to a mechanism which is being implemented. I mean, we remember when the fresh onslaught which was introduced in terms of Azm-e-Istehkam, we know it was nothing but, of course, improvement of IBOs, increased number of IBOs which would be implemented, and of course it would ensure that not a single stone is left unturned in terms of finding out what's going on and why all of these terrorists are they keep on entering in Pakistan and do their activities. But in that context, of course, we saw that one government which is of a province government, it had shown its disgruntlement, and when it comes to rest of Pakistan and rest of political parties, they were on the same page. But it was the propaganda which was garnered against this very particular onslaught. It was said that it is to, of course, create more IDPs within Pakistan and create more havoc in the same areas where it had been before, and it would create further problems for Pakistan. But Sana, when it comes to, I mean, earlier I was listening to General Zahid, and he has rightly pointed out the timing of this particular incident, yesterday's incident, and we know so far that, of course, Chinese engineers, they were, of course, the target, and the car which was used, it is now apparent during the, of course, investigation, is somebody Shah Fahad, who happens to be aligned with BLA, and he is involved in it. It's a car on his name, and once again is BLA. But most important thing is, last time around SCO's SCO's summit, it took place in Goa, and just before that or during that time, we remember India conducted a false flag attack in Kashmir and put it on Pakistan, that Pakistan is behind the cross-border terrorism, so that the whole sort of attention can shift towards the cross-border terrorism. And now this time around they do it once more just before SCO, and the only reason behind it is that we already have a sort of I mean, I personally talk with certain journalists from India, and they have already been talking about this, that this time around when their Minister for External Affairs comes to Pakistan, in his speech he will be, as we know that this SCO is going to highlight the connectivity of the countries amongst them, and they are going to actually present with an alternate to CPAC, and that is, of course, Chabahar, connecting Chabahar through Afghanistan with the Central Asian republics, and of course using Chabahar to connect with the Europe as well through Turkey. And this is what their plan is, that they want to, of course, propose a different route, and that is more safer route and all. Reason being, they are going to portray that CPAC is not a viable kind of solution to all of the connectivity problems. And as we know that Pakistan has the internal security problems, so here we have Chabahar and our kind of connectivity which should be preferred rather than the CPAC. This is what their agenda is this time. So I believe India is behind it once more, and we have, I mean, we have been giving the dossiers, we have been giving the evidences to the Western world about it as well. Kulbhushan Jadhav is a living example. He is with us, and they have been, of course, doing it since long. And once more, BLA, BLF, be it TTP, all of them, as General Zahid rightly pointed out, is the very Taliban who have been, of course, committing themselves in the Doha Accord not to be, I mean, the land would not be used against any of the neighboring countries, but our country is being
absolutely
targeted.
That of course is something that we need to look into, but there's also of course a lot of concerns within Pakistan's borders that I would like to explore at the moment, and we'll come back to that, Faisal. And Farrukh, I want your take on that, because of course that is important in terms of what Pakistan needs to do to ensure the protection of its own citizens, to ensure the protection of anyone that is inside our borders. And so it's very important, particularly when we talk about our fight against terrorism and our relationship with other countries such as China, to ensure that, and then of course with the upcoming SEO summit. But I want your take in terms of what exactly has been missing, because we keep on talking about the preparedness of our armed forces, the strategies that is there, the action plans that are there, the resolve that is there, and that seems to exist every time there is an attack, every time there is an intelligence-based operation. We see that, and we are confident in that. But despite all of that, we still see that we talk about our fight against terrorism and what can be done. So what's really missing, and what aspects can actually be implemented just within the borders of the country to ensure that we are doing our best?
Right, Sarah, thank you very much for the question, and welcome back. Regarding, whatever is happening inside Pakistan, in order to begin answering that, one has to once again look outside as well, because there is this point about India is not incorrect, right? India, its national security advisor has publicly stated that they are going to deploy what is called defensive offense. That means that, and his words, if something bad happens in Kashmir, boom, you lose Balochistan or Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, right? And simultaneously, what is happening is, while we keep on fighting not only terrorism, but also trying to contend with people like Marang Baloch or PTM, they keep on growing, right? And one repeatedly is reminded of what Bhajapa or RSS's certain associates or affiliates say, that by 2025, Pakistan is going to become part of India. So one has to talk about Asia 2025. Now, let us come back to the reality on ground. And earlier, General Saab was talking about priorities. So here's a brief recap of the kind of priorities we had. Of course, I've told you that it took us more than a decade to realize that if suicide is an haram in Islam, absolutely haram, then how can suicide bombing be halal? And then generate the kind of consensus that was needed. Unfortunately, people and kids like those who were in APS Peshawar had to lay their lives down before we could, cobble together the consensus, which was fleeting. After that, we saw a national action plan that you spoke about. There are 20, points in that, and they don't connect, right? This is the biggest problem with the Pakistan's counter-terrorism approach, that we couldn't add so much meat to the bones, or flesh to the bones, so that it becomes a proper structure. What happened was, because you needed consensus, you got only skeletal points and you got the approval. In 2018, there was something else that happened. We kept on saying that the country doesn't have a proper counter-terrorism policy in a published form. So instead of that, and because at that time we did not have national security document, the Interior Ministry produced a document called National Internal Security Policy, which is great because it had a component of counter-terrorism. But what happens in that document? They speak about intelligence sharing, Sana.
Okay.
Pakistan has a bustling list of intelligence organizations, and the idea was that there's going to be a counterterrorism center where all the resources are going to be pulled together, and that is going to help in IBOs and whatnot. Amazingly, just look at what has happened in Karachi. I mean, everybody knew that SUO is happening, that Chinese are coming, and India is deeply uncomfortable with Chinese presence or visit, and there's going to be some kind of attack on Chinese assets, right? Or individuals or citizens. So what happens? There is this bomb, and where is it located? Near airport. So the first question that comes to mind is, why is it that we are not pulling together all the intelligence that was needed for all this? Now, there's another kind of concern. Faisal earlier was talking about, state being, political parties being part of the state. Unfortunately, that is not the case. In textbooks, state is a state,
yes,
right? And political parties are political parties. The twain can never merge. If they merge, you are going to have the kind of bedlam that we see in India in the shape of.
But it is part of the larger political setup of the country.
They're part of the civil society. They're part of the political society, but they're not part of the state per se. Even the government is only an element of state, right?
Sure.
My problem with the whole situation is that when I look at the circumstances, NISP, by the way, lapsed last year in 2023. And nobody even mentioned that we now don't have that document renewed in the country. But that is not all. You know, when you look at the happenings of past 1 week, the question is, whatever was happening in Blue area, or for that matter, D-Chalk, right? What was that? So my concern is that they might be enemies of the people, TTP, BLA, whatnot, and then they are useful idiots. The people who are very constantly used by such elements, so that there is so much unrest in the society that the intelligence system and the governance system is overloaded and overheated, so that we cannot do much. I don't know what possessed them to go for that kind of event.
Yeah.
But the kind of results that gives us, that again questions the national priorities. Now, once again, in 2021, Pakistan got another document, and that was, regarding the revised national action plan. Again, skeletal structure. In every important country in the world, we see national security document being revised or strategy being revised every 2, 3, or 5 years. Pakistan doesn't seem to be doing that at all. Where is the text that tells us in detail how to tackle terrorism, how to tackle elements that might be actually undermining directly or indirectly the state itself and the nation's interest? If we keep on going for chasing this fleeting mistress or this torturous mistress called consensus, we are not going to reach anywhere. Because do you know what happened? After PTI government was removed, voted out, within a few days there was a suicide bomb in Peshawar's police headquarters. And after that, what happened? Within 2 days, entire KP's police force, at least Peshawar's, was out with conspiracy theories, right? If you're going to tolerate elements which are totally, mentally compromised in a way that they keep on allowing, under the government, the kind of conspiracy theories that continue to spread. And then you have a different standard for people who are not using the name of religion. Then where are the priorities? Are you going to fight terrorism?
Absolutely, and that's a very important point. And General Zahid, I want your take on that, because it's extremely important when we talk about our fight against terrorism that we involve all elements that are creating instability in the country and that are, of course, damaging the interests of the country. And that, of course, includes our religious and political elite as well. And we've seen that the decisions of certain decision makers of the past have actually resulted and contributed to the current situation as well. And so, therefore, there is a lot of call for accountability and action to be taken. However, there hasn't been much that we we see in terms of an actual way forward, or people being brought to task, or having a proper mechanism in dealing with such issues and threats? So I want your take on that, and particularly what can be done with regards to that.
Well, Sana, before a quick point on our previous discussion, we have been talking about whatever is happening inside the borders of Pakistan and the international connection. One point we must keep in mind, that any insurgency, if it doesn't have support from the outside elements, from other forces outside the country, the success chances are very oblique, to be very honest. So that's why the connection with whatever is happening in Balochistan with the international or the application or the our neighbors, it cannot be ruled out, and it cannot succeed without their support inside. Now, coming over to the question which we
agree with that, but General Zahid, as a follow-up, if you can also give your perspective on that, what should be our target? What should be our approach? Should we be targeting those terrorist activities and supporters and groups that are actually implementing or taking that action, or the ones that are supporting these insurgencies, or the ones that are creating those elements within the country and are based outside of Pakistan? I understand we've brought dossiers and evidence to the international arena many times in the past, but what exactly is then the way to fight it?
The biggest challenge is, the biggest challenge for the state of Pakistan is the international acceptance. If we are not fitting in the design of the international theory or the international context, in terms of the economy and all that, India, like we were contesting India. So India is a bigger country. India has more economic interest, their acceptance in the India. Even now, India is much more extremist India. It's a Hindu India. It's a saffronized India. So it is acceptable to the international community because it is fitting in their designs. Pakistan is not fitting in their design. You can assess this when US was present in Afghanistan. We were able to clear Waziristan. We were able to clear South and North, both Waziristan. We were able to clear Bajor. We were able to clear Maman, Sawat. So Balochistan was not. The moment they left this region, you see there was a surge in the terrorism, and all of a sudden a new wave. Though we ourselves were also responsible, because after the military application, the kinetic application, the social and political prong was not that effective. It was they were unable to fill those gaps. We have done this FATA merger, but you see not much political reforms and the social reforms. We were having much more category A areas during the Musharraf time in Balochistan. Again, we lost them to, we converted them to B areas. So that social political prong was not, that was not followed up very well in Pakistan. But again, now we cannot live under the baggage of the past. Whatever mistakes we have made, we should not be, talking about that he has made this, or who he was responsible, or whosoever was responsible. We should not get into that debate. At this moment, Pakistan and our nation should have a strategic pause for everything except economics and security.
I understand, but respectfully, the mistakes of the past have actually impacting today. They are still impacting our present. So why can we not look at them, and why can't we look at accountability? Even if it is of the past, it is something that is wrong. It is something that has damaged the country and the country's interest. So shouldn't there be accountability on that front?
Of course, there has to be an accountability. Accountability is a process. It has to go with the process of democracy. It is part of that democracy. It is a process. But what I wanted to say, and I was pointing out, was that we should not, bog down due to the baggage of the past mistakes. We should learn from the mistakes. There should be an accountability. But with the new strategy which we have to adopt, the political prong and the military prong, and the social prong and the military prong, and the economic prong and the military prong, these have to go together. Now, for example, in Balochistan, the precision, all the kinetic operations should be with precision, very heavy, equally matching, rather more hammering in nature. But on the other side, the political effort, and we must involve some local people, local leadership, Balochi people, a solution coming for Balochistan, from Balochistan, and involve some social, scientists, the academia and other people, a group of people carving out the strategy. You cannot put everything in the plate of the military and say now that we have to achieve everything. All right. So it has to be a great mix led by the political leadership and the I mean, the groups like the religious parties and religious people, common people, academia, the university guys, the students, everybody should be involved in making that strategy and they should lead. So military should create the environment and they should bring the solutions in.
Right, absolutely. Thank you very much for those perspectives, General Zahid. And I request you to stay for our next segment as well, because we're going to be talking about the All Parties Conference and, of course, the issue with regards to the genocide going on in Palestine and Gaza. And this is extremely important. And Pakistan, of course, has taken up this stance and has also called this APC to discuss this matter and to take this up from the front, and also call all the Islamic countries to get together and present a unified stance as we observe the anniversary today of the start of this genocide. But of course, the suffering continues from much long ago. And I want your perspective on that, General Zahid, first in terms of what you've seen in the past year and the way that you've seen international responses, the continuing impunity of Israel, and the fact that there hasn't been any proper or substantial way that we have been able to actually implement the violations of international norms, the fact that there is a genocide going on. There hasn't been any consequence despite the International Court of Justice, despite the United Nations, despite many countries calling for sanctions in the UN General Assembly as well. And so what is it that you think that can be done by Pakistan and other Islamic countries that is more than just talk and actually ends the suffering of the people of Gaza?
Well, Sana, unfortunately, the whole year was, I mean, it was, Israel was on a killing spree and they had a free run to kill everyone in the first, they went to the Gaza, and we know what all has happened. Now, coming over to the Islamic world and Pakistan, unfortunately, we talk much about the Islamic world, but there are deviants within the world. So once they, if somebody, and they, everybody is trying that this war is fought on the sectarian lines, which is detrimental, and this is extremely dangerous for a collective response from the Islamic world. You can understand what I am hinting at. So first of all, we have to guard ourselves, all the Islamic countries. Now, Pakistan is an extremely important country in this context. You know, we are the nuclear power, we have the voice, and Alhamdulillah that today Pakistan has nothing like anything of anything from coming out from the sectarian, field in our policies. So Pakistan can reach to Saudi Arabia, Pakistan can reach to Iran, Pakistan can reach to Indonesia, Malaysia. So we have a reach to all parts of the Islamic world. So Pakistan is a country which can really play a more proactive role with aggressive diplomatic efforts. We can at least, first of all, we can gather the Islamic world. At least we should have one voice coming out of the Islamic world for the people of Palestine, for the people of Yemen, for the people of Lebanon and Syria and Iraq. You know, if we are dealing this situation, whatever is happening in Middle East, on the lines, on the geographic lines, it is not a matter of piece of land. It is a matter of humanity. So we need to create that unity amongst the Islamic countries, and then we should move forward and contact as a one group, a contact group, maybe going to the United Nations and going to the other part of the world and the powers which matter. You know, unfortunately, United Nations has lost. We talk about resolutions and all that. So the big powers, those, if they are not in a mood to accept those resolutions, what you can do? They have the veto powers, all right? So this is kind of a war between the proxies. You see the proxies. The Israelis, they are blaming Iran that their two proxies are fighting against us. The Islamic world and the Iran and these people, they are asking, they're declaring that this Israel is a proxy of USA and the West. So this is a war which is more in the gray area as far as the context is concerned. But with the impunity, the way Israel is killing people and humanity is, suffering from this war, this is unbelievable. This is unacceptable. So Pakistan has to get the Islamic countries together and go for an aggressive diplomatic effort. And on the other side, we should work a lot in the humanitarian field. We are, 60% of hospitals are out of action in Gaza and in that.
I completely understand, and of course, this is not a situation of a war; it's of genocide, and it's extremely important to recognize that. Thank you very much, General Zahid, for joining us and being a part of this discussion. And because of that, Faisal, I want your perspective as well. Because of what we actually understand the situation, we of course also are trying to understand how to solve it. And so, I want your take in terms of what is going on in Gaza, of course, the genocide, and also in terms of the possibility of an all-out escalation in the Middle East. We've seen attacks that have happened recently on Lebanon, and then of course we've seen the attack by Iran as well, and this of course is now moving towards further escalation in the Middle East. And while of course that is also something that needs to be curtailed and there are calls for de-escalation, there is so much that has caused this, which isn't really being looked at, and who exactly has caused that needs to be taken to task as well. But in terms of what General Saab was also referring to in terms of actually first creating that solidarity or that unity, it seems like a long goal and a long haul, because that of course again is something that we've been trying so hard to achieve but haven't done so.
Yeah, Sana, obviously, first of all, when we look at this particular all parties conference of Pakistan, I think it was much needed, and Pakistan has time and again reiterated the facts related to what the solution Pakistan desires and what is the solution Pakistan desires, and that is of course aligned with the OIC's solution as well, and that is two-state solution, and the borders should be considered as pre-1967 war. We know that Pakistan has reiterated these facts in United Nations as well, and once again it has been reiterated by Pakistan. It was much needed one. And secondly, when we come towards of course Gaza and the situation of Middle East overall, including Beirut and of course whatever is going on in Lebanon, that has a lot to do with Gaza as well, and Iran, especially when it comes to Hezbollah, which is a political party of course Lebanon as a state, and that political party with time of course it developed itself into a militarily a force within Lebanon, and that is why initially, I mean, it was said by the Israel that they are targeting this particular political party, but rather they are targeting the whole state itself. And when it comes to Gaza as an occupied state, if we consider it, once again Hamas was the ruling party of it, and it had a political entity aligned with Muslim Brotherhood, Akhwanul Muslimin, and of course this once more is the factor that actually attracted last year's onslaught by Israel. And I was just going through a few of the facts. I mean, I googled during the day, and that was related to bloodiest year for children of Palestine, and that was actually in the Western media. And you know what the date was? It was 6th of October 2023. On 6th of October 2023, this was the sort of research they had posted in there, and that research actually included since 2000. I mean, since 2000 till 2023, it was being considered as last year was the bloodiest year for the children of Palestine. I mean, on 7th it takes place, and we simply ignore whatever happened before, and that is being ignored by the Western media, that is being ignored by the Western powers. They need to of course focus on that, and that this did not start on 7th of October, it had been going on since long, and that's why on 7th of October there was a reaction to it, and that reaction actually led to genocide which is being conducted.
Absolutely, but
when it comes to escalation, you've highlighted right. I see escalation. I see it. Why? Because now, of course, when we know that Iran jumped in, and yesterday's Iranian steps related to showing off that they are capable of nukes, and it is being considered that this this show off by of course Iran, it is a message for the Western powers that the ballistics we have been sending empty. Next time they might have something in it.
Obviously, and that's a matter of concern for the entire world, or the possibility that exists. But I want your take, Farrukh, in terms of what you see actually happening, because we've had a year, unfortunately, of this genocide continuing. We have many decades of suffering in the past as well. It's a great measure taken by the Prime Minister to call the APC, but Pakistan, of course, has been able to put forward its own stance. But again, in terms of the action that is needed by a country like Pakistan and others, including the Islamic countries, it will take a lot more in terms of actually making it happen. We see the UNGA and a number of countries expressing what needs to be done or how sanctions need to put in place, but we don't see anything happening. We see the ICJ taking it up, but nothing happening. We have the UN resolutions, but nothing happening. So what value or significance then does APC or the country or the Muslim world holds in actually contributing to the situation and making a change?
Thank you very much, Sana. You have actually spoken about too many birds. I'm going to talk about Pakistani one, right?
Okay.
Just as a brief context, two things that are very clear to me. One thing is regarding October 7th being an act of frustration or something. Nothing justifies murder of innocent, unprotected citizens.
Absolutely.
Right? If Israel was doing it, it was wrong. If somebody else did, and we know the context here, that is also wrong. But that doesn't justify whatever is happening right now, right? And the second aspect is that the information and fighting space has shifted so much that the one thing that everybody, you and I, can also do is at least expose the fascist and the oppressor for whatever they are, right? Whatever Israel has been doing repeatedly is not only genocide, it is genocide, it is ethnic cleansing, and then exposing the apartheid nature of the Israeli state. And I think that there two things are important. Of course, Pakistan is not geographically contiguous to Israel. Pakistan has had no direct bearing on either side, has never had any bearing on each other. So I don't know what exactly will be the reaction once there is some kind of sentimentality that overloads the system. But I know one thing for sure, by APC, we have shown that we are all united and we're very clear-headed on whatever Israel is doing in Gaza, right? And in West Bank now, or now also Lebanon as well. But apart from that, what really gets to me is in the Western media there is an attempt to, put everything upside down and keep on blaming the children who are dying for some kind of sin of their own, right? This is obnoxious. And that's why it is important that we keep on exposing them. Recently, there was an episode on CBS. There was a morning show, no less. There's a celebrated author called Ta-Nehisi Coates, who wrote a book called The Message, and he spent some time in West Bank, and he exposed the nature of apartheid state.
Right.
And the anchor says that, why do you think that is happening? Palestinians must have done something.
Wow.
Really? Little babies have done something wrong, right? So it is important. If you can't fight with weapons, at least fight with your intellect.
Absolutely.
And if you keep on reminding people, and this is something we learned even from the Jewish people, Holocaust, there were so many attempts to rewrite and do away with Holocaust memory, but they kept it so that all the exploiters are remembered for whatever they were. We can do exactly the same thing here.
Absolutely, and that is absolutely necessary to do that, to making sure that the world does not forget what is going on. Thank you, Farrukh, and thank you, Faisal, for joining us. And we hope that we see an end to the suffering very soon, and that we are not here once again looking back at another year. That's all we have from the debate. We'll now see you tomorrow.